Are being abused by pedophiles in Hollywood.
Absolutely.
So why are you sitting down talking to me? Why aren't you sitting down with the police right now?
A person was asked, "You really believe children are being abused by pedophiles in Hollywood? Then why are you here talking to me instead of sitting with the police right now?" The response was firm. "I already went to the police." Back in 1993, I was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Police Department, and I gave them names. It's all on record. They have everything. He explained how people dismissed him as paranoid, saying he imagined things, that there was no way certain people could be behaving that way. But over time, he said, he realized he was disturbingly close to the truth about what was actually happening behind closed doors. He went even further, claiming that he had experienced extreme abuse himself, describing situations where he said he was stripped of his clothes, left in the woods, and hunted by powerful figures, including former U.S. presidents and political leaders. He stated that the people responsible for what happened to him and others were still active, still working in the industry, and still among the wealthiest and most powerful individuals in entertainment. He insisted that they did not want him speaking publicly. When asked directly if he was saying these people were pedophiles and still operating in Hollywood, he answered without hesitation that yes, that was exactly what he meant. Against this backdrop, attention shifted to Mel Gibson, who after years of being sidelined in Hollywood suddenly resurfaced with a major comeback. This surprised many people, especially considering the controversies that had surrounded him for years. However, some began to believe that his career troubles were not just about his public scandals, but about his refusal to participate in what they described as disturbing rituals within the industry. According to these claims, Gibson had been warning people about dark forces in Hollywood long before the Epstein scandal became public, and his production of the film Sound of Freedom was seen as part of that effort to expose what he believed was happening. At the same time, Jeffrey Epstein's name exploded across the internet after reports surfaced that millions of files, including videos and images involving elites and women, had allegedly been released by the Department of Justice. People online claimed that the material showed horrifying scenes, including young girls being chased by Epstein and other adult men while partially clothed. Some described the content as so disturbing that it could not even be spoken about publicly. Although details remained unclear, many assumed that whatever had been done to these victims was deeply abusive and criminal. One particularly disturbing claim involved an email Epstein allegedly sent, in which he compared people to shrimp, saying you throw away the top and keep the body. For many readers, this quote symbolized the dehumanization they believed was at the center of his crimes. Despite all this, only Epstein himself had been officially arrested at the time, and people began speculating that he might still be alive. Others pointed to Ghislaine Maxwell's imprisonment, describing it as unusually comfortable and questioning how someone involved in such serious crimes could receive what they perceived as special treatment. Another detail that fueled online speculation was Epstein's reported purchase of hundreds of gallons of sulfuric acid in 2018. People questioned what anyone would need such a large quantity for, since the chemical can dissolve almost anything down to bone. Given Epstein's history, many concluded that whatever he used it for was probably illegal and sinister. The timing also raised eyebrows, as he reportedly bought it on the same day the FBI opened a case against him. To conspiracy-minded observers, this felt like yet another clue that far more had been happening behind the scenes than the public was being told. During this wave of revelations and speculation, Mel Gibson's name repeatedly came up. For years, Hollywood had framed him as a problematic figure, someone whose controversies overshadowed his career. But now, some began to see him differently, suggesting that he might not have been the villain he was made out to be. They pointed to his 2004 film The Passion of the Christ, which became a massive success despite studios refusing to fund it. Gibson ended up using his own money because, according to him, the industry did not want to touch a movie centered on Jesus and faith. Even after the film's success, Gibson faced accusations of anti-Semitism, with critics arguing that the movie fueled hatred toward Jewish people. Yet supporters claimed these controversies were part of a broader effort to discredit him. A resurfaced interview from the late 1990s showed Gibson talking about unsettling experiences he had when he first entered Hollywood at 25 years old. He described feeling confused about how others seemed comfortable with things that deeply disturbed him. At the time, mainstream media painted him as unstable or paranoid, but now some viewers believe he was describing the same kinds of abuses later connected to Epstein. In that interview, Gibson explained how he initially thought his suspicions were irrational. He told himself he was imagining things, that no entire town or industry could really be as dark as his fears suggested. He compared Hollywood to a strange horror story setting, where everyone goes quiet when a stranger enters a bar and warns him not to go near a certain house on the hill. Eventually, he said, he convinced himself he was wrong, only to later realize that some of his worst nightmares had been disturbingly close to reality, even if not exactly as he first imagined. After being sidelined in Hollywood, Gibson eventually returned to relevance through The Passion of the Christ, which he independently produced. To his supporters, this reinforced the idea that he had been pushed out not because of his behavior alone, but because he refused to conform to the industry's darker expectations. They described Hollywood as a modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah, a place of moral decay hidden behind fame and glamour. According to this narrative, Gibson's refusal to play along with what he saw as corrupt practices made him a target. The story then shifted to Jim Caviezel, the actor who played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. After working with Gibson, Caviezel also became associated with speaking out about disturbing aspects of Hollywood and the world of trafficking. Some speculated that after becoming one of the industry's favorite actors, Caviezel witnessed things that changed him deeply. Together, Gibson and Caviezel eventually collaborated on Sound of Freedom, a film that focused on exposing child trafficking and exploitation. Gibson produced the movie, while Caviezel starred in and helped promote it. Sound of Freedom became a surprise box office success, earning over $250 million worldwide on a budget of around $14.5 million. The story follows a U.S. government agent who rescues children from trafficking networks, particularly in Latin America. The film opens in Honduras, where a poor father named Roberto Aguilar is deceived by a former beauty queen posing as a talent scout. She convinces him to let his children, Miguel and Rocio, participate in a fake modeling opportunity. Instead, they are kidnapped and sold into trafficking rings. Caviezel's character manages to arrest distributors of child exploitation material and rescues Miguel, but Rocio remains missing. Frustrated by bureaucratic limits on what he can do internationally, he quits his job and decides to continue the mission independently. He teams up with allies, including a former cartel accountant nicknamed Vampiro and contacts in Colombia. Together, they set up an undercover operation, posing as buyers to infiltrate trafficking networks and expose what the film portrays as a deeply hidden and horrifying underworld. When the movie was first released, many viewers saw it as simply a dramatic thriller based on real-world crimes. But after the Epstein scandal became widely known, some people began to view it differently, believing the film was connected to what Epstein and others had been doing for years. They pointed to themes like fake modeling agencies, elite parties, and powerful men exploiting vulnerable children, arguing that these elements mirrored details from Epstein's case. To them, Sound of Freedom was not just entertainment, but a warning that had come true. Online reactions to the Epstein revelations were intense. One person wrote that reading about the files made it seem like billionaires were allowing their own children to be abused by Epstein and others, calling the situation sickening. Another commenter dismissed Gibson's claims as conspiracy theories, noting that he had acted in and promoted films tied to controversial ideas before. Still, supporters argued that too many details now aligned with his past warnings to ignore. They believe that what once sounded unbelievable had become increasingly difficult to dismiss. Supporters also argued that Gibson had been canceled before cancel culture even had a name. They pointed out that after the resurfaced interview from 1998, mainstream outlets portrayed him as unstable or dangerous rather than seriously considering his claims. Studios distanced themselves, and his career stalled for years. It wasn't until he poured his own money into a Christian film that he managed to regain relevance. Even then, they said he continued to face backlash and accusations that overshadowed his professional work. The narrative surrounding Epstein further fueled these beliefs. Many people felt that despite overwhelming evidence of abuse, justice had not been served. Epstein died in jail under suspicious circumstances, and Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction did not satisfy those who believed a vast network of powerful individuals remained untouched. The idea that thousands or even millions of files existed, yet few arrests were made, led to widespread distrust in institutions meant to protect victims and hold perpetrators accountable.